Hey there, mamas. So, all this month is going to be cloth diaper sewing month, January 2021. It was suggested by my blog and by some people that I know online. So, every live stream this month, I'm going to be working on elements of a single system. This is my all-in-two system. I've linked it in the description. You can download the templates or from the downloads page on my blog, or you can just follow along and improvise your own. It's just a general idea of a system, and it's got a cover that can be used by itself as a standalone cover. It has an insert sleeve that can be used by itself as an insert sleeve. You can put a microfiber insert inside a cotton fleece or flannel or bamboo fleece sleeve, and then it's safe to be against the baby skin. You can use just the insert with just the sleeve with just the cover, or you can use the insert sleeve with something else in another lay-in system. It doesn't matter, they can all be used separately. The insert sleeve will have snaps on it though to snap into the cover, so it's more like how the Cotton Babies elementals are, where they are a strip of absorbent fabric and then attached, but instead of it being attached, it'll be snap-in. Then it also, in addition to this, has a contoured fitted that fits into it and snaps in, as well as a actual fitted that is made to fit in it and snaps in at the back of the hips but doesn't snap in everywhere else. And it's made to be also a standalone fitted or a fitted that fits into the system. So it's got a bunch of elements, and it sort of reminds me of the Grovia system in some ways, because it's got this contoured, elasticized fitted insert that fits into it, as well as just being kind of a more universal cover. In this case, it's going to be a dual pocket cover. So there's this separate piece here where it's like a flap that everything sort of tucks into. But the difference with this flap is that it has snaps on it. And those snaps then hold on to whatever's inside. So, or they're underneath it. But that way they can snap directly into whatever you're using. And the pattern has these grayed out snaps, and they go through this side and out, through the inside, or through the outside in this case, through the outside and then into the inside, while these solid black snaps are the ones that you use for closures on the outside. So it might be a little hard to sort of pick apart all the pieces. So I'm going to, instead of picking it apart, just do them one by one, each weekly live stream during this month. So this live stream is just going to be me cutting pieces. We're going to cut and assemble all the various pieces. I've got some plain blue baby Vilpul, super slick, nice and thick, very easy, very durable. I've got some orange cotton fleece. It's like 95% or 100% cotton fleece that I got on clearance at fabric.com years and years ago, figuring I can use it for tutorials. It's nice and dark, it shows white thread really well. It's great for tutorials. But it's also just cotton fleece. And so what cotton fleece is it looks kind of like sweatshirt fleece, but sweatshirt fleece tends to be sort of a cotton poly blend, and you want to make sure that you have a high percentage of cotton or bamboo if you're going to be doing an absorbent like soaker. And this is a very, less stretch, but all cotton. It's also an ugly color, but so what? So this is going to be an orange and blue system. It'll be great. It'll be so pretty. And today we're going to cut the snake soaker sleeve and serge that up. You can also just sew it up. I'm trying to decide what I should do. I guess I could just sew it. That's probably easy. I won't serge. I'll sew. That's easy. So with that, you're going to go for this width right here that I have in here. You can just measure that out. You can just say that is 15.5 centimeters across, or 11, 12, 6 inches across. It's a broken ruler. That's what I use for straight edge. And so you want to take that and you want to add on whatever your seam allowance is. So you take that and you probably add on, half an inch or less to sew it once, and you're going to make a sock. That's all it's going to be. A single layer you know, multiply that by 2, add a 1/2 inch, cut a rectangle, sew it down one side. You could do 2 cuts and sew it down both sides. It doesn't matter, but I'm just going to do one and wrap it around. Then you're going to just leave a little bit of extra for the length, and that's going to be tucked in to make a nice finished edge. Then you're just going to put your snaps that are going to snap into your system at the ends of it. So, you know, it's all about measuring. There's not really a precision involved in this one. You're just going to take also broken. It's like I have kids or something. And I work way too much on the ground. So 6, so 12, so 12 and a half width by 17 and a half, 18-inch length. I've got my super awful orange fabric here. And right now we're just going to make that little sock. Where you can take any insert and you can just shove it right in. I love it because I had a lot of microfiber inserts and I don't really like using plain microfiber. But a lot of people use the dual microfiber with natural fiber to help. The natural fiber kind of acts like a chamois while the microfiber acts like a sponge. And the problem with the microfiber by itself is that once the baby gets a little bit heavier, it just lies on it and it just smushes all the fluids out. So even if it seems like it holds a lot, it doesn't hold it in. So when you have something like a flannel or cotton fleece or bamboo fleece sock around an insert, that then adds that layer of retention. It'll absorb, but not as much, but it will hold in and it won't just squeeze right out. So adding this insert sock makes for a much, more practical use. And it doesn't really matter which direction this is. It's not going to be stretched. It's just going to be a sock. You can use non-stretched fabric like flannel. It's just totally fine. So 12 and a half inches in. I've got kind of a rough edge here that I'm going to avoid. Obviously not doing things super precise, just cutting. If anybody has any questions, just ask away. Hi, Kimmy. I can actually read things now that I have a big monitor. I probably should have switched my monitor to there, but oh well. It's my first time really streaming with my new monitor setup, so I didn't have it set up quite right. Yeah, I can move it over. That'll work. Don't mind me, just dragging a window. Hey, now it's right in front of me. Yay! Okay, now I can see in front of me. Well, you don't even need to use a serger for this. You could just do this with a sewing machine. This one I don't think has, except for, the fitted shape, if you want to do the fitted insert, that's, my sample is serged, but it doesn't need to be. It's faster, of course. Making any sort of insert is faster, and making any sort of diaper in general is faster. Some people don't like the serged edges, though. Sometimes the serged edges are rough on people's skin. Some babies are sensitive to serged edges. But it is faster, and if you get like a woolly nylon thread for the serger, it helps. I have some, but I don't have it loaded in my serger. Because I don't do this stuff very often anymore. My kids are big. They're humongous. My daughter is 5'3" at 11. I am not very big. Well, at least not in height. Okay, so I've got my little insert sleeve piece. Cut it about 18 inches. Can do a little beyond. It's a fun system though. It takes some time to make all the pieces, but I really like how it turns out. And it's, I didn't ever make more than a few of them because, they take time and I'm lazy. But I saw something similar in Europe, like online in Europe. And there was nothing like that in the US. So I thought that I'd make my own take on it. It wasn't me being super creative, it was me modifying something else, which is most of what I do. Six. So what else have you tried to sew so far, Kim? Like what other diapers do you have? Cool, cool. My kids both fit in very different diapers. Like my son had big wide hips, but a really little waist, and my daughter had a big round belly, little teeny skinny legs, and like straight up and down hips, which is like so the opposite of what you think of a boy versus a girl. But in babies, it's they are what they are. So for the sock, the first thing you do is just make a sock, turn it inside out, sew up one side. You can serge up one side if you're using a serger. And then when you get to the top, you just fold the edge down and sew around like a loop. And that's the entirety. And then, after it's all sewn up, you just put your snaps in place to hold other things just through one side. I sometimes put a little square, a secondary square of the cotton fleece so that it's a reinforced snap so it doesn't pull right through. And then for the pull pieces, I see. I love sewing with grandmas. Love it. Mind you, whether or not their kids actually use the diapers that they sew is less fun. But I really like sewing with the older generation because they grew up sewing and they know how to do the sewing. It's really hard to explain something entirely new like this to somebody who's never sewn at all before, or who's only sewn really basic things when you've had a little bit more familiarity with the machine under your belt. It's really good. My friend, my local friend Tracy, she's a grandma multiple times over. And she was my first in-person cloth diaper lesson recipient. And she's now had 4 grandkids that she's sewn diapers for, and she's just so much fun to work with. I always wanted to go to like a community center and do like charity cloth diaper sewing with people there who are bored. Because even if you know how to quilt or hem, you can do most of this stuff, but there's the learning curve of learning to use a new medium, a new fabric. And pull can be tricky, especially some pulls are really sticky. Did you get a chance to watch the fold over elastic tutorial that I posted today? I was editing that while my son was getting his Remicade infusions. So I only got that one edited. I've got a pre-fitted that I filmed, but I haven't finished editing it. It'll go up in about an hour after this stream. I just have to do a couple more things to it. Now there's more people, yay! Yeah, sergers are nice. I didn't get my first serger until my daughter was probably almost 2. She was already almost out of diapers. And I was so new with it. I'd used a serger in my teens when I worked at a sewing machine store, but I hadn't used one in a long time and I'd never had my own to practice with. So like all I'd really done was like thread them and like do like the little sample stitch things that we would put out with the different machines. And that was my only experience with sergers before I got my own. I grew up with a sewing machine in my house, but I didn't get my own until I had kids. I used to hand sew, even like Halloween costumes and cosplay stuff. I think I got my first sewing machine for like my first Mother's Day or my second Mother's Day. And then after that, they became like Mother's Day presents. It was kind of funny. Yeah, there is a lot on my blog. So, my blog was back when I had kids in diapers. And I've done a couple things since just to keep it going because it gets a lot of views. But I didn't have time when my kids were younger to do videos, and I didn't have a setup. I didn't have like webcams and stuff. Nowadays, my husband and my son both stream for gaming, so I've got their hand-me-down camera and hand-me-down monitor, which is pretty funny. Um, but yeah, I never figured out how I could do the streaming without it being really complicated and having little kids at home. It was way too complicated to have time to myself. Like, this is in my basement, so it's a little bit out of the way. Where are you guys located? You don't have to give me specifics, obviously. I noticed that the majority of my views are in the middle of the night here, between like 2 and 6 and 7 a.m. ish. So that, I'm guessing Australia, and I know that we got a comment from somebody who was um in Dubai, I think. Dubai. So it seems like my majority of my viewers are not in America. So then I feel like I should really be doing everything in centimeters, but we're so backward here in America that I don't even know metric conversions very well. When I was in school, they always said we would change, and then they never did. Yeah. I figured by the way you talked that you were either Australia or New Zealand, by your comments. That's cool. I've always wanted to visit, but I never have. I've gone to Europe a couple times, and I've been to Mexico, but nowhere else in South America, too. And I've never been anywhere in Asia. I am in the Seattle area, if it's not obvious by my blog. I know my blog mentions it several times. I'm not from here, though. I'm from California, as with most people, I think. It's a big population, and everywhere I run into, people are like from my hometown, even, which is so crazy. Which is a town of 4,900 people, so that's also pretty funny. I've been to New Mexico, but never Albuquerque. I have a friend who's from Alamogordo, I think. I visited her there once. So I know that some people have had trouble with understanding the way that I do the the elastic casings on this pattern, and when I get to that part, I'll try to make it clearer. It's really just about stretching at a curve, and pull is a little bit stretchy, so it's kind of like when you're doing anything that's, you know, kind of a weird stretch to it. Like when you're doing the shoulders of a shirt and you go from a stretchy piece that's one direction stretchy to a stretchy piece that's the other direction stretchy, it's kind of that same feel where you're pulling against what feels like it should be the direction you're going. So there's the main body piece. It's just the full outside of the cover. It's got those fold-in casings. So when you get to that, basically you just fold them in as you sew and sort of stretch it as you sew so that it doesn't pucker. And since it's going to be where the elastic casing is anyway, once the elastic's in, you won't even see that sort of unevenness to it. But I know it's tricky for some people. I've been to the UK, but only briefly, only once. I think that we like stayed in Luton, visited London, and flew to Dublin while we were there, but it was only for a few days. So the weirdest thing about this pattern is all the backing pieces. Because it's all a system, I tend to do like the way that I do on my fold over elastic cover. I tend to do a piece that's like this whole area from here up for the backings for the snaps, for the rise snaps, for the through the shell snaps, and for the ones that are behind either the snaps or the Velcro. It it's just easier for me to just do like a whole piece, but some people just do a whole extra background like second piece of pull. I mean, if you want it to be really durable, there's no reason to not just cut like an entire extra piece. It's bulky, but it definitely gives you all the backings that you need. I think that that's all. There's a couple different ways you can do the snap-ins for the soaker too. You can put them on the side that's toward the flap, but then you've got the caps against the baby skin. So I always put them on the outside going inwards. I mean, but I think it would work either way. It's just whether or not your kid is sensitive to having snap caps against their body. So again, that's another thing that's not obvious unless you look through the posts and you see how I sew it up. So are you using the really heavy, the heavy bamboo fleece? And did you machine dry or you just hang drying it? Sorry, there's really a lot of lag between what I see and when you ask, so it makes it a little harder for me. That is one reason why I only do pedal soakers. I only do pedal soakers because more than 2 layers of bamboo fleece is a lot of work to dry. It washes pretty well, but it does take time to dry. So this is the thing about the sleeve for this is it would dry like 1 layer bamboo fleece because it's 2 layers, but they're serged, they're sewn together and they're open. So it would dry very, very quickly in regards to bamboo fleece. But 2 layers of bamboo fleece shouldn't dry any slower than a pre-fold. I mean, a pre-fold, if anything, would probably take even longer to dry. Um, and that's really all you can say. Like you could do inserts out of something thinner, like I don't use the heavy bamboo fleece anymore. I only use the normal weight, and that's a lot better, honestly. Especially after they fold. But you could also use things like diaper flannel, like multiple layers of a jersey, like a thinner cotton fleece, or like a couple layers of an interlock. Like an interlock knit would be like, or a French terry knit would probably be a good solution if you're going to be doing pedal soakers or layered soakers where you want to have really thin, easy dry layers. So something like each petal being 2 layers but having 3 or 4 petals of something like a heavier interlock would be a good solution to get over the whole quick drying issue. I have a couple different interlocks here that are pretty thick, but I mean the majority of like normal store interlock is going to be several layers. But it is an option. It's always an option to just do more petals or a folded soaker. You could do an insert that's like a trifold insert. You could do 2 layers of a fabric, sewn together in a rectangle and then just folded and make that a rectangle. And then when it washes and dries, it's just open like a rag, but it folds up and is quicker. I mean, everybody's washer dryer routine is different, and that's why I made those fold-in fitteds because they wash and dry really easily for people who have to hang dry. But yeah, they still take a while. Heavier fabrics, and like I said, I don't use heavy bamboo fleece anymore. I never liked it. I never understood people who primarily used it. It was just so thick and took so long to dry. So would you put the pull? I'm not understanding for your petals. If you do bamboo with a stay dry layer, only your top petal has to have any sort of a stay dry. All the other petals could just be your fleece. You could do single layer, but they'll probably curl up. You don't want to have pull on a petal. The pull will be the outside, the cover. You'd want to do unless you're doing like a backed soaker, but each layer would not be with the stay dry. Only the very top petal, and then the rest of the petals would build up. But you would need a total of 6 layers of if each one was only one layer of bamboo fleece, you would need 6 layers. Oh, for the diaper. Well, I mean, one layer of bamboo fleece in a diaper is not going to hold anything. That's like what you would put in like a maxi pad. Like that would be like a mama cloth absorbency. It wouldn't be enough for pee. You could have the body be um you could have that be the body, but why would you have stay dry on the body if you've got a soaker on top of it? You could do pull, one layer of absorbance, stay dry top, and then an insert that's five more layers, I guess. It's all about the math of absorbance, right? It's like you need to have, lots of layers though. For the whole body, if the whole body's got one layer, then you could probably get away with 4 layers as an add-on, and then make sure that you include a doubler that they could fold in with it. Babies pee a lot, especially when they get bigger. Newborns can get away with less, but then they also have less surface area. Bigger babies pee a lot because they all they do is drink. They're eating a liquid diet, right? So they pee a lot. that's that's really the only thing I can say about that. So yeah, all the patterns on my blog came about when I was in the baby center cloth diaper sewing community when my kids were little, and people would just have random topics about specific types of diapers. and there'd be various people doing different patterns, and somebody'd say, oh, I want to do that pattern, and they'd be like, well, I don't have a pattern. And I was like, oh, I'll make a pattern for you. And that's how every pattern on my blog came about. It was just basically somebody else saying they wanted to see a certain type of thing, but they didn't know how to make a pattern, or they made it themselves and they just winged it, or they saw it somewhere, but they've never seen a pattern for it. And so I just made a bunch of patterns. And then Crystal from Opulent Monsters, which is now Socery, she was in that group, and she had one kid that was same age as my oldest, and then her youngers are younger than mine. And she was doing her own designs, but at the time she didn't yet know how to do the digitizing. So she had me digitize her patterns for like her patent drawings and things like that. That was fun. So basically that's my only skill. It's not the sewing or the ideas, because they're not mine. It's the digitizing patterns. That's basically the thing that I did. It was just digitizing everybody else's ideas. Okay, so you've got your outer, and then what I do is get another piece of it, cut in set from the others, and you can cut it in a little bit more even, just so that it's not overlapping your seams at all. I feel like I'm crafting with this one. It's got so much random like snaps and glue sticks and okay. So you set it inside, and I use a glue stick to sort of block it in place. Just a washable glue stick. That's what I use for almost everything. Clean up the top here. I can hear my family walking around upstairs. It's so funny. Okay, so there's your piece for your snapbackings and my washable glue stick. And I don't fully glue it down. It's not going to stay fully glued down because I'm gluing it with the polyester side. It's just to sort of hold it in place. I just go around the outsides. And it's between two layers of pull, so even if it doesn't wash entirely out, it's not somewhere that's ever going to be exposed to anything. But it's a great way to sort of block your fabrics. There's the spray adhesives and stuff too that you could use. Or you could be really, really careful and clip, but you don't want to pin with pull, because then you're puncturing the waterproofing. My husband paces while he's on the phone for work, so I'll hear him on his phone call at work, and he's just pounding on the ceiling above me. I'm gonna make that a little bit shorter. I don't need two layers at the very top. There we go, much better. We're gonna call this crafting on camera with Arfy. Nobody ever asks me where Arfy comes from. Okay. So there's your snap backing piece. There's your cover piece. We've got our insert sock cut. Now we just lay our template over it that lines up. And I go with the Sharpie, and I just put a dot in all my spots. if you're doing snaps. I think I'm actually gonna do applets, but I'll put all the dots on just because it's good to see. And I just use one of those long crafting hole punchers on my patterns to use the snaps. I know some people who just stab holes through their paper and use that, but I use those long-armed hole punchers. And for the back, right, these two right here. So if you were going to be doing snaps, those are the marks that you would have to guide your snap application. I think I'm going to use Velcro, so I'm just going to Velcro onto the other side for that one. But then for the rise snaps, I use cam snaps, size 20. And I have a little like snap toolbox thing next to me that has a bunch of colors, but I'm using white since I'm the dark blue. It shows up really well. Plus I have more of the whites than anything else. And I've got my snap pliers and my awl. And I just go through and I punch my holes first. And that way if my glue kind of separates while I'm going, it doesn't matter because the holes are already punched. You can also wait for the glue to dry, but it doesn't matter. It helps for the wings on a fold over elastic cover to wait for those ones to dry, just because you're pulling on the fold over elastic and stuff, and it can be a little more aggressive. But for almost everything else, you can just do it to kind of tacky hold it down, and it doesn't matter if it actually holds in the long run. And then these two are going to go through the other way. And then these two are going to go through the other way as well. But I'm going to have reinforcement for those. So you can do a strip for reinforcement, or you can do little squares. A strip will hold better. It'll be less likely to pull through. So you could use your little scrap here that you've got cut off and make like a, 2 centimeter by whatever that length is. 4 inches or so, whatever. I don't know how many centimeters that is. Probably 10 or 12. Let's see. 12, yay! I guessed it right. I'm learning. So then you could just put that over that, just like you did on the other side. And since that one's doesn't have to be very long or wipeable, you could sew it either direction down. If you want it to hold better, you could put it laminate to laminate, like that. And I've already got my holes through, so I can use that to guide it the other way. Pockets are the most universal. Pockets are really great. The pocket shells wash and dry really easily, but with pockets you need to use pull with every diaper, which is harder for sewing and longevity. A pocket diaper won't tend to last as long as like a cover plus insert system. With pockets, you can convert almost all pockets to all-in-twos, just adding extra snaps and then just not using it like a pocket. What I like to do is those back cheapo China pockets that you can, buy for cheaper than you can make. add two squares or a rectangle of pull across the inside of the pocket at the back, pull the pocket down, and add snap-in inserts. Then you can have natural fibers against your baby's body for babies that are sensitive to to the imitation fibers, to things like suede cloth. A lot of babies are sensitive to suede cloth, so something like that would be better for delicate skin. It's also easier to switch out. Then you don't have to reach into a soiled insert. A lot of dads and babysitters don't like doing that for changing out, like, and taking and putting in the laundry. So you can turn a pocket insert into a natural fiber covered, so snap in all into, with like a shell, like I'm making with the sleeve. You can make a sleeve for it and use the same inserts, but then have them snap in to a pocket. The best diaper system for like heavy wetters would be fitteds and covers. A good absorbent fitted is always going to hold better than an all-in-one or a pocket, because the entire diaper is absorbents. And it's not going to be bulky, because the whole diaper, even if the wings are thin, there's still another layer there of absorbent fabrics. So if you have the time, and also you don't need to use, you don't have to sew pull, the best system would be like, to make 4 to 6 covers, if you're doing one size ones, 4 to 6 covers, and like 12 to 18 fitteds. And that would hold up the best, be the easiest to double, have the least issues with skin issues, less build-up issues. It really is going to be the ideal system, but it's a lot of work to make that many fitteds. And a lot of people do fine with just pre-folds and covers, because it's the same kind of idea. Pockets and all-in-ones are best when you're doing things like babysitters or daycare. My son used almost primarily pockets. That was like, he fit really great in the blueberry pockets. He didn't have heavy wetter needs except for overnight. But my daughter just did a lot better overall with pre-folds and pre-fitteds and, nice fitteds. And then for her potty training diapers, we used the Grovia system, because I got a bunch of used really cheap. And that was really great because of the smaller, less absorbent insert, and her being able to recognize that she was wet really fast. But they caused issues with buildup, and she would get little sores from ammonia and stuff, because the whole diaper was, so concentrated. There's a lot of, people like them for different reasons. And so there's really a diverse reason to get different diapers. Different babies, just like with different disposables, different babies just do better with different diapers. But I think universally, if you're not afraid to change diapers and you just want the best, like, absorbency versus effort, then a mix of like pre-folds and covers and fitteds and covers is going to get you the furthest. Having that separate cover is really just going to be one less thing that's going to have the chance of leaking, and one less thing that's going to, be harder to sew. Because even if you went and bought just like a bunch of cheapo, $5 to $10 covers, and only had the ability to make yourself fitteds or contours, that would be a better system than buying an entire kit of like Bum Genius pockets or Alva or, one of the more basic pocket types. It would be a better system. It would be better on the skin, and it would hold up better for overnights. Hopefully that answered questions. I mean, there's always going to be debates on that stuff. Any cleft diapering group's going to tell you why they chose what they chose for their kid. I'm looking at it from both a sewing standpoint and a longevity standpoint. Especially if you have the kind of cover that's not going to need elastic replacements through multiple kids. It's just something that would last better through multiple kids and longer, and through a harsher wash routine. And this is why I do fast forwarding on my videos, because I am slow. The reason why I chose to do this for my live streams is because it is such a complicated diaper that if I did it over multiple videos, it'd be broken up and people probably wouldn't watch all the parts. And if I did a single video of it, even with the fast forwarding, it'd probably be an hour. And a lot of editing and footage and me messing up. So just having it be sort of like for the people who really want to know, and they can then fast forward after I finish filming it, is probably a better idea. Just because who wants to watch me, you know, do this many layers and this many snaps and, different types of inserts. I'm more here to answer questions, I think, than anything else. I will do a video. Somebody asked about, I don't know if it was one of you or not, somebody asked about a video on my process for making the templates. And I'll do that in February. Because that's kind of a universal thing. I do that for every type of, sewing that I do. Like when I did the Christmas crafting week and the cloth diaper, and the doll crafting week, the doll clothes week. Those are all templates that I, just whipped up right for those things. I already had the doll ones because of a group I was in, but there are things that it's as simple. I'll tell you guys now. It's really simple. You make your paper template and refine it, by taping pieces on or cutting pieces off until it's how you want it. And I use inside out grocery bags that have been cut open for my paper. And then I lay it over my cutting mat, which already has inch grids on it. I have a bigger one for bigger things. And then I stand straight over it so that it's the least distorted, take a photo, and then I bring that photo into a graphics app, and I just trace it. And that's how all my templates are made. I trace my paper templates, but on the computer. Like, not even with a mouse. I just use a trackpad on a laptop. It's like so silly. And when I do the vector images where they're scalable and stuff, I use the path tool and then just shape out the curves and then copy and paste it inverted. Like I do one side and then I mirror it to do the other side. I don't even have to do it the whole way around. When you do things like the casing channels, you just select dashed line. It's like, it's so simplistic. Anybody with like rudimentary graphics application knowledge probably could do it. And then as long as people printed at 100% and you traced it with your grid on, so that your grid lined up with the grid of the cutting mat, then it's exactly to scale. And you don't have to worry about manually doing any of that. Hopefully that's useful knowledge, although who knows how many people want to make their own templates. But I mean, I do it for I've made, clothes for my kids over the years too. And whenever anybody asks, to have my pattern, quote unquote, because there's no pattern, I wing everything. I don't even, use snap templates when I do things myself. But yeah, whenever anybody asks, all I have to do is take my paper templates that are all in a big, box and just take a photo of them over a mat. So it's nice. But, kind of overly simplistic. I'm sure there's a lot better ways to do it. I know that there are pattern making applications, like my friend Crystal, she did like fashion design school, and there are like applications that totally simplify those steps, where you just take measurements and you input it and it like does it for you basically. But mine is just tracing a grid board basically. Turn on the grid, set it to 1 inch so that and then make it, and then shrink and enlarge the image until it exactly lines up with your mat. I do 1 inch with 4 subdivides, and then I can use these little dots here as, guides as well for smaller curves and stuff. Okay, so when you're doing the version with the Velcro, which is what I'm going to do, you put the snaps on before the Velcro so that it ends up hidden by the Velcro on the front. So, put it through. And I like doing the sockets on the cover and the studs on the inserts. You can always switch it around. Any questions about any of the other patterns or anything? I can always answer questions while I put on snaps. Also, I totally am up for doing like a sew-along one day. Like, if people all have a project they want to work on and they tell me ahead of time, we can do it together, and then if there's any troubleshooting that anybody needs done, I'm happy to help. Okay, so there's your snap prepped outer cover piece. And then I'm just going to sew on my Velcro at the front. I'm curious how you guys found my blog. Like, if it was linked to from a group, or if you saw me post about it, or, you know, word of mouth or whatnot. I'm always kind of curious how it keeps getting all these visits and all these years. Like, it kind of blows my mind. It only gets about a quarter as many now, or a third as many now as it did when I was actively running it, but it continues to get like 400 to 600 new people every single day, and that's kind of crazy. I mean, nothing like these YouTube channels that have like 50 million viewers and each video gets millions, but this is a niche market, right? This is a niche market. This isn't something that most people you'd think of would be looking at. Nowadays, there's, you know, patterns you can buy in stores. You know, when I started that, there was no cloth diaper patterns available like in regular stores. Like the Babyville stuff did not come out till I was been doing this for multiple years. And the initial Babyville stuff was really bad, like suggesting people use like batting for inserts and stuff. So that was amusing. And then they got in touch with, I think, the Rocket Bottoms lady, and she did a lot of their improved patterns. So for the cover, for the front of the snap thing, just, you know, you can place it however you want, but I tend to just center it kind of roughly. I definitely don't do things as precise as my actual... Oh, and you can use the glue too. And this is another situation where to hold things down, you can do a spot of glue. I'll do that. Little bit on one end. A little bit on the other. A little bit in the middle. And just center it. That's about even. You don't want to sew too close to the edge when you're doing Velcro, because some Velcros will run a little bit. So you want to be inset a little bit, but not so much that, you know, it pulls up. But I've definitely seen people who sew too close to the edge and then their Velcro frays a little bit. Just like how some elastic is stretchier than other elastic. You know, you can't ever give a elastic inches, you know, or centimeters, because what if somebody has different elastic than you? And I'm using the, I think 1 1/4 inch appliques for this, but I think that the wider works better for this system. If you have the 2 inch or whatever it is, the really wide Velcro pieces, this is the really soft stuff. I got this from a co-op type sale a long time ago. But the kind that's really wide is really nice for this system, because it just gives more... It's more like using the loop fabric. I used to have some loop fabric. That was pretty cool too. And I, in general, don't use a lot of Velcro, just because if you're using fold over elastic and Velcro or Velcro with other diapers, there's always that risk of damaging your diapers with the Velcro in the wash. So anybody who makes Velcro diapers should be really careful with their laundry tabs and or have the snap-on removable tabs for laundry. Because you can fully destroy pull and destroy, you know, nice fitteds that have a surged edge if any of the hook gets caught on them in the wash. So I usually go and round my corners a little bit. Just a little bit. And you can round it before or after you sew it on. This way it's just easier for me. As long as you don't cut into your pull, you're good. Okay. There's my nice, pretty front Velcro with my hidden snaps inside there. If it's a little puckered, it doesn't matter. It's a cover, who cares? But it looks nice on the outside. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, now that that's prepped, is just do my little insert sleeve. And for this, we're just going to turn it. Oops. For this, we're just going to turn it this way. You could sew down the edge first. Like you could sew down the edge first and then turn it and do it this way. You could sew down this way and then fold in the edge. It doesn't matter which order you do it in. I always put the seam, if I do it this style, I do the seam on the underside anyway, so it wouldn't show. Or you can do it, you know, with two seams on two sides and have it have a proper up and down. You can serge it, you can sew it. I'm just going to sew it. For those people who don't have sergers. And that was one thing that was really important to me with my templates and my tutorials, is that there always has to be a non-serged option. I didn't get my first serger, you know, for multiple years, so. And not everybody's ever going to get one. And honestly, a lot of the things, like you can make a fitted hand sewing, it just takes forever. But that's when something like the non-sewn diapers would be so great, like a t-shirt diaper where you just pin it on and you fold it like a flat. So now you've got your little sock. And now you're just going to take it and you're just going to fold an edge down. And if you're doing it with sewing, you can fold it flat like when you're quilting. You can clip it or pin it because it's not waterproof, so it doesn't matter whether you clip it or pin it. Or you can use one of those fancy sewing feet that always folds things exactly the same amount. And the cool thing about the insert sock is that no matter how your insert is sized, the sock will just collapse to be whatever size it is. So if it's if it's on the, smallest rise and you have a small insert in, or you have a folded or snapped insert in, you could then just fold down the sock, because it's just a sock. It's not thick. You don't want to use a really thick fabric for the sock. Definitely nothing lighter, nothing heavier than like a lightweight bamboo fleece. Heavyweight bamboo fleece by itself is already going to be too bulky for something like a sock. I think like that's good. And then you're just going to take it and sew around. And for something like this, depending on how much you fold it over, I'd probably left justify my needle. If you fold it less, then you don't have to, but I like to sew right along the edge of my fold rather than in the middle. Just make it a little bit more clean looking. Caught up there. There we go. So now you've got your pretty little sewn down sock there. You could press it and press that seam open if you're doing this style of seam if you wanted to. And then you just do the same thing the other side. And this is great if you already have a bunch of inserts. Like I got a lot of just like used diaper bundles when I was doing stuff for charity. And so making something like this, you could then turn and insert into its own diaper. So if you just make a couple socks, you've now got something that you can use standalone in a cover, but you can't use one of those microfiber polyester inserts as a diaper. They can't go right against the baby's skin. It would be really hard on their skin. It's overly drying and irritating, and a lot of times they get buildup. So if you go and take something like, an insert sock, then all of a sudden you've got a solution that can be used by itself, especially for older babies that don't have the really liquidy poo. It's a really great sort of way to adapt. Or if you have, old rags or old towels or old, shirts, you could just fold them up and slide them in an insert sock. You don't need to make an actual functional, self-standing, whatever, self-contained insert just for diapering. You can use anything. You can tri-fold one of those microfiber towels for like the shop. You buy them in like bulk at like Walmart or Target. They have these neon colored microfiber towels, which are great for diapering. They're just as good as the microfiber inserts, but they're just rectangles. So if you go and tri-fold one and put it inside a sock like this, now you've got, it wouldn't be a sponge anymore. It would have the sort of a fully functional insert rather than just being the microfiber. I know a lot of the diapering boards that I was on when my kids were little were people using those, auto rags, basically. Cheapo microfiber auto rags. And various things that they found that they could do with them. But yeah, something like an insert sock is like invaluable. I mean, even just a one layer flannel one, like you could use that then to turn something totally useless into something really nice. And rather than sewing it around it and hiding whatever's inside it, this way you've still got the fast wash and dry. So there's your sock. All done. You can press it down, or you can just leave it, or you can serge it, or whatever. And then I would take a little piece of the fleece. I think I have some in the trash even. If I have any small enough. There we go. So there's even these pieces that I cut off earlier. I could use one of them. So then you could go and take a little square rectangle that you already cut off. Make your snap reinforcement. Take your insert, line it up. See, look at that. Fits perfect. Yay! You can overlay it over it, obviously, but I was just trying to see if it lined up. Now you just take your awl, one, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you've got your snap on the right side. And the backing is an important thing because you don't want your snaps to get pulled through and damage your fabric, especially if you're using thinner fabrics or stretchy fabrics or porous fabrics. A lot of people use a little bit of a poly fleece as a backing because it's less likely to pull through something. It's kind of tighter weave and tends to stick a little more. So there I've got, my snaps on the one side. I can do the same thing on the other. So line it up. Do my little dots. Forgot that I had to do 4 and I threw it back away again. And I made this the width that I made it in the pattern to hold pretty much any of the retail inserts. Like they're specifically made to hold the microfiber inserts. Some of them are quite wide, like the Bum Genius ones and the Swaddlebees ones, I think. I don't even know if these companies exist anymore. I know Bum Genius does. But they were pretty wide, at least at one end, for the shaped ones. So I made this the width it is because some of those inserts are, you know, a good 5.5 inches wide and multiple layers. So I had to make this pattern wider through the crotch and make this the snake soaker, you know, the insert sleeve wide too. So people could use it with all sorts of things. So there you've got your little sleeve that snaps into your shell. And I will pre-cut the fabric for the fitted insert for next Wednesday. And I'll have all those pieces done. And then the following Wednesday, I will have all the pieces made for the cover, and we'll just assemble it. So it'll be the fitted insert next week, and then the cover the following. And the fitted doesn't need to be done separately because you make it the way that you make any fitted, other than adding the extra snaps. So let me get a big wide sock. All sorts of random inserts in here. So back when I was doing the charity stuff, I would be given all sorts of inserts without any diapers, and basically I would make extra shells or extra covers, because the whole thing is you had to quickly get them done, and they had to be, you know, ready to go out as a complete diaper. And I didn't have time to make all the diapers, but I could make socks. So if I could serge up inserts, that's great, but that's fabric, and something like this is really easy. And something like, you know, stripping a bunch of inserts that are super nasty because they were donated, and then throwing it into a sock, and then making a fold-over elastic cover, or repairing the elastics on an old cover is a much easier way to get a quick product out to somebody for charity stuff. I wouldn't make them a whole system, that would be a waste of time. But something like this, which is very wide, you know, it still fits inside. This one has stay dry outer, so it can be used by itself, so it wouldn't need this, but it's just to give an idea of the size of some of these things. I don't know what these are from, but they're really, really wide and really thin. So you'd need to put like 2 of these in to actually, you know, be enough for anything. And they're contoured, but they still, you know, that the shape of the sock would work. So you put 2 of these inside a sleeve when you're pre-stuffing your sleeves, right? And you get a bulky middle, but it's great to be a practical diaper, and it's great for an overnight solution. Plus now you've got the layers of the natural fiber that'll help prevent, you know, the sponging effect. And it just will take on the shape of that, so it's going to be more contoured, but it still fits around it. And even if this was a non-stretchy fabric, it would still fit those inside it. I know those can be used, you know, just inside a cover or inside a shell. And that's the reason for that. Anyway, so that's first. Next week will be the fitted, the contoured insert, and then the cover. I'm gonna end it now too. Happy sewing.